Alright, so 2-4, this is I think my 10th attempt at posting this video. I hope it works. Alright, so when we left off in Matilda was just about to start school. So this chapter is called Miss Honey. So Matilda was a little late in starting school. Most children began school at 5 or even just a little before, but Matilda's parents didn't care about her education. So she went to school for the first time at 5 and a half. The village school for younger children was a plain brick building called Cruncham Hall Primary School. Now Matilda was put in the bottom class where there were 18 other small boys and girls about the same age as her. Their teacher was called Miss Honey, and she could not have been more than 23 or 24 years old. Miss Jennifer Honey was a mild and quiet person who never raised her voice. She really didn't seem to smile, but there was no doubt that she possessed that special gift by being adored and loved by every small child who she taught. After the usual business of going through the names of the children and taking attendance, just like us 2-4, Miss Honey handed out a brand new workbook to students. "I hope you all brought your pencils," she said. "Yes, Miss Honey," they chanted. "Good. Now this is the first day of school for each of you, and I myself want to help you learn as much as possible while you are in this class. That is because I know it's going to make things easier for you later on." 2-4, how many times do I tell that to you, right? I say we're learning this because it's going to help you in real life. I like Miss Honey. All right, let's keep going. So, that's because I know it will make things easier for you. For example, by the end of this week, I'm going to expect that every one of you know the 2 times table by heart. And in 1 year, you're going to know your times tables up to 12. It will help you so much if you do. Now then, do any of you happen to have learned that already? So Miss Honey, now back when I learned school, we learned multiplication and we memorized something called the times tables. So we'd learn multiplication, but we would just memorize it. And Miss Honey is saying that they're going to learn the 2 times tables. And the 2 times table is just like 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4, 2 times 5, 2 times 6, and usually it goes up to 12. 2 times 12 is 24, and you stop. Okay? Let's see if anyone knows the 2 times tables already. So Miss Honey asked, "Now then, do any of you happen to have learned the 2 times tables already?" Matilda put up her hand. She was the only one. Miss Honey looked carefully at the tiny girl with dark hair and a round, serious face sitting in the second row. "That is wonderful," she said. "Please stand up and recite as much of it as you can." Matilda stood up and began to say the 2 times tables. When she got to 2 times 12 is 24, she didn't stop. Now, most children only know up to 12. But Matilda kept on going. 2 times 13 is 26. 2 times 14 is 28. 2 times 15 is 30. 2 times 16 is... "Stop!" Miss Honey said. She had been listening, slightly amazed as to how smooth and fluent Matilda was reciting this. "Matilda, how far can you go? Could you tell me what 2 times 28 is?" "Yes, Miss Honey." "What is it?" 56, Miss Honey." "Well, how many times tables do you know, Matilda? Do you know all the way up to 12? "Yes, Miss Honey." "What's 12 times 7? 84, Matilda said. Miss Honey paused and leaned back in her chair, behind the plain table that stood in the middle of the floor in the front of the class. She was shaken, but she didn't want to show it. She had never before come across a 5-year-old or even a 10-year-old who could multiply with such ease. Now, Matilda, for instance, if I asked you to multiply 14 by 19, no, that's too difficult. Matilda answered right away. It's 236, Matilda said softly. Miss Honey stared at her. Then she picked up a pencil and quickly worked out the sum on the piece of paper. Matilda, what did you say the sum was? She said, looking up. 236, Matilda said. Miss Honey was amazed at how fast Matilda could do that in her head. There was no doubt in Miss Honey's mind that she had met a truly extraordinary mathematical brain, and words like a child's genius went through her head. She knew that these wonders pop up in the world from time to time, but only once or twice in 100 years. And she is sitting in front of a genius right now. This isn't fair, Lavender, a girl in Matilda's class, said. How come she can do it and we can't? Don't worry, Lavender. You'll catch up soon enough, Miss Honey said, lying through her teeth, because she knew no one would be able to reach Matilda. At this point, Miss Honey still wanted to explore the mind of Matilda. Let us leave math for a little bit. Let's see if anyone has began to spell. Does anyone know how to spell the word cat? 3 hands went up. Nigel, Lavender, and Matilda. That's fantastic. I wonder, she said, do any of you know how to say and read a group of words when they're in a sentence? Miss Honey went to the blackboard with her chalk and wrote this sentence. So this is what she writes. I have already begun to learn how to read long sentences. She wanted to make this a hard sentence because she wanted to see who could read it. Nigel, can you tell me what that says? That's way too hard, Nigel said. Lavender, what about you? The first word is I, Lavender said. Can any of you read this whole sentence? Miss Honey asked, having a feeling she knew who was going to raise her hand. Yes, Matilda said. Go ahead, Miss Honey. Go ahead, Miss Honey said. Matilda read the sentence without any hesitation at all. That is very good indeed. How much can you read, Matilda? I think I can read most things, Miss Honey, Matilda said, although I'm afraid I can't always understand the meanings. Miss Honey got to her feet and walked smartly out of the room. She came back in 30 seconds carrying a thick book. She opened it at a random page and put it on Matilda's desk. Matilda, this is a book of silly poems. Can you read this one out loud? Very smoothly, Matilda began to read without pausing. Matilda, who taught you to read? Miss Honey asked. I just sort of taught myself, Miss Honey. And have you read any books all by yourself? Any children's books, I mean? I've read all the ones that are in the public library in High Street, Miss Honey. And do you like them? I liked some of them very much indeed, Matilda said, but I thought the others were fairly dull. Miss Honey asked Matilda, well, now that you've read all of those children books, what are you going to read? I'm reading other books, Matilda said. I borrow them from the library. Mrs. Phelps is very kind to me. She helps me choose them. Miss Honey was leaning far forward over her work table, staring in wonder at Matilda. She had completely forgotten about the rest of the class. What other books? She asked Matilda. I'm very fond of Charles Dickens, Matilda said. He makes me laugh a lot, especially Mr. Pickwick. At that moment, the bell in the hallway rang and sounded for the end of class. All right, 2-4, so that was the end of Miss Honey. Now the next chapter is called, oh, you can't see it. The next chapter is called The Trunchbull. and the Trunchbull is the principal in Matilda's school. Do you think she's going to be as nice and kind as Miss Honey? We'll have to see.